I like a cherry on top when I go to the man who cuts my hair. Welcome to Simplified Sparky Marketing. I've embedded a riddle into the start of the podcast so you can decode that if you want to find out who the person is. A few years ago, this podcast, and it's more of a phone call style podcast, I was making a coffee this morning and I remembered a fantastic story about a renovator. So this is a follow-up to yesterday's podcast and it involves a house flipper. So there's a person who's very well known across Channel 9, Channel 10 perhaps, who goes into houses and flips houses and makes money from it. So many, many years ago, I think it was 2017, I got a phone call from a young couple who had just bought a property in the suburb I was living in, and they wanted work done. So the scope over the phone at the time was we need new PowerPoints, we need new light switches, we need new lights, we want to renovate the kitchen, we want to do loads of things. There was so much to do. I was getting very excited. So they were only around the corner. I think they found me on the Google Business Profile that time because I was kind of wondering, it's like, wow, how could I have got such a good job? And I went and had a look with it. So I met the couple. And as I walked in the door, they pulled out this little folder and I was like, all right, what's going on here? And they had the scope of the works all made out. So it was a case of, we've got like one architrave SPM switch, again from Bunnings. There was like 4 PowerPoints to be wired and added into this apartment, which would have entailed, luckily it was a top floor apartment, but you would have had to drill through the external walls and the cavities, got up, shoved it up into the roof, and then crawled around the roof and got the cables around that way. So it was possible, surprisingly, in this apartment to add them in without having to do ducting and all that because it was a solid brick apartment. So I went in, I had a good look around, had a good chat with them, didn't really know the go with this folder, and I was there for 30, 40 minutes and going through everything because I was like, I'm going to put effort in because this is a good job. So she put this folder, the couple put this folder down, but she was holding it and she put it on the counter and she was flicking through things. It tweaked my interest of like, why the fuck has she got such a detailed folder? This is a red flag. And I could see there was like a scope of like, as I said, an architrave switch. There was a 2-gang switch. I was like, I don't like the look of this. So she flicked the page and it was a full scope of works. And I seen what caught my eye the quickest was labor allowance, $1,000 for this. And I was like, what the fuck? So this was even when my pricing was horrendous, when I didn't even know how to quote. I was like, there's a couple of days work in this for sure. And then you've got to come back and fit off. So I was looking at that, and back then I was extremely timid, but I built up the courage to say, look, I'm after noticing that you've got a budget of $1,000. Where'd you get that figure from? Or what's that about? And she's like, oh, that's what our coach told us. And I goes, oh, your coach? This is where you go back to the start of the podcast and you decode the intro. She's like, yeah, so we're part of this organization and we basically buy these houses, spruce them up basically to flip. But what this couple did was they spruced it up to rent out. So they would have got a better yield on rent by making it look prettier, by putting down floating floors, literally lick of paint, which I'll get into, change the light fittings, add a few PowerPoints here and there, put a cheap, nasty kitchen in there, Bob's your uncle, a lot more rent. And then in time, obviously, sell it on again. So I said to them, I said, look, with all due respect, I can't do it for that price. So for that reason, I am out, like fucking Dragon's Den. And they're really nice. I just said, look, honestly, I can't do it within that budget. And then they were like, but our coach told us this was what to allow. And I was like, this is reverting back to yesterday's podcast where Knob Jockey brings out his fucking AI prompt. They basically degrade tradies. And look, there are a lot of fuckwit shithead tradies out there. And we all know that. The kind of dead shit tradies that will fucking drag their heels, just do a shit job, not give a fuck about anything, and they will be cheap. And this is the shit thing about our industry, is there's always going to be the shitheads that will cut the throat out of the industry, and they will just rock up, do it for a few cases of beer, or do it for $50 an hour. And they're the kind of people that claim they work for themselves, but all they're doing is subcontracting work for $50 an hour, thinking they're running their own business, but really they're subbing to these really shitty jobs, not getting paid half enough. But they're not educated enough to be like, there's better work out there and you don't have to lower yourself to the standard. But that's what shits me to tears about the guy with his AI prompt and also this lady that does the renovating. She basically emphasizing use the cheapest trades you can get. Therefore, you're going to make more money on your flip. Like that's the squeezing that happens in this. But you as a podcast listener are bettering yourself in the industry, in the trades. So you will not be one of those people. Fast forward 6 to 7 months later, I got a call from the real estate in that area who I hadn't done work with. But again, it was because I was so close to them on the Google Business Profile. They must have given me a call. And that real estate agent, I won't name, but you can ring it and put property after it. And then they called me and they said that there is an issue with this property. So I was like, at the time, I didn't have job management software. So I was like, didn't take any notice, nothing flagged in the system with the address. So I knew the road because it's very close to me. So I went to the job. And then as I was getting to the doors, this is the apartment that couple were renovating. So they must have finished the apartment, spruced it up and rented it out to this real estate agent. So I went in there and it was an issue. The scope of works was an issue with the hot water and an issue with the oven wasn't turning on. So I got there and it was fucking phenomenal to see. So it was just this was so satisfying to see of like, I fucking knew this would have been a shit job. So what they done was in the bathroom, they had painted the tiles and they just put like one layer of paint. That's not a bad thing to do. You can paint tiles. You need to do it properly. There needs to be about 4 or 5 coats. It needs to be prepped, etc. It looks like they slapped 1 coat of paint on it. And where a presumably female or a male with some really long nails was turning on and off the hot and cold water, they scratched all the paint off the wall. So every time they moved the on and off, it was scratching like semicircles around the paint. That was deteriorating. You went into the kitchen, they put the shittest, stupidest light fixtures that basically caught all the grease and dust that came out of the cooking. Whatever the fuck they were cooking, I don't know. But it was all sitting on top of these clear lights that basically captured everything. There was dust and crap everywhere. Cheapest, nastiest fittings used in the house. The tiling they did themselves, so the PowerPoints were all fucking cut out incorrectly and stuff. I go to the cabinet, open off the switchboard. They kept the original switchboard that was in the apartment and just added 1 or 2 breakers. And I was like, holy shit. So then I got to the hot water, jumped down underneath the sink. It was one of those ones with a contactor. I took the cover off, tested everything worked, turned on and off the tap. Contactor was pulling in perfectly. I checked all the taps. Hot was working, the kitchen, bathroom, brilliant. There was no issue with it, in my opinion. Tested everything. Everything was working fine. Then the oven seemed to turn on fine for me. So I was like, what the fuck are they talking about? So I pulled that out for the sake of it. In behind it was a nest of junction boxes and crap. I don't know what they were doing or intending, but it was just shit thrown everywhere and then just shoved behind the oven and then shove the oven down and hide it all. But the oven, the connection was fine. At the back of it, it was turning on. It had 240 volts. And I was like, this is working, in my opinion. I don't know if it was a user problem or what was going on, but everything was working, in my opinion. Now, the fun part was sending the invoice to the real estate. So when I sent the invoice to the real estate, I stated what I had done in the apartment. And basically, they called up questioning the invoice. And they said, why are you sending us an invoice? And I said, well, went to the property as you instructed. There was an issue with the hot water and the oven. Checked everything. Everything was working correctly. And they're like, yeah, well, you didn't really fix anything though, did you? And I was like, well, that's besides the point. I brought out my test equipment, my tools, pulled stuff apart, put it back together. So technically there was work. And they're kind of like, don't know about that. And needless to say, that was the last job that I did for the real estate. Mutually, I never got asked to do a job again. And I didn't work for any more real estate after that. And that's what kills me about real estate is like the style and type of work I love. Like I love doing those kind of jobs where you duck in, duck out, you change a PowerPoint, you check something, you move on to the next thing. I love it, but the money isn't there in my opinion. And look, people might be making money from it. But in my opinion, the only way you're going to make a lot of money from real estate is sending your apprentice in there, which is highly illegal technically. And look, the good thing about real estate is it's a gap filler. Like it's very hard to get consistent service work for a big team. So it's always good that you can just throw somebody in and at least break even with real estate work. Like that, it's a good gap filler. But the way I looked at it was like, I can't make lots of money at this, so I'm not going to waste my time doing it. That was me parting ways with my real estate career as well. And I'm glad I did do that. And that's the thing in business is you get these bumps on the road where you've learned from an experience or it's been a shitty time and you learn from it and you move on. You just don't do it again. And those things happen in life and in business and you just move on with it. Again, this all really ties back into your target market of who is that person that's paying the bills? Who is that person that's giving you, your family, your business income? And do you really want to work for them? I just wanted to share that story with you because I thought it was a good follow on to yesterday's podcast. And I can't believe I forgot that. Have a cracking weekend. I'll catch you next week.